visiting with Mom and Dad and talking about some good old days and not so old days. And we're just going to ask a couple questions. What should we start with?
Your wedding day then.
Oh, let's start with where they were born. When were they born? Let's start from the beginning.
Okay, the beginning.
I was born at the Rugby Hospital. I was the youngest of all the family, and my mother had problems with the other child before, so then we got to be born. I got to be born at Rugby Hospital. And I was the youngest in the bigger family of 12.
The only one that got to be born in the hospital?
I am Cliff.
Well, you and Cliff.
Yes.
I was born at the South Farm, and the doctor I don't think made it. He come by buggy, and I don't think he made it. You know, that's the only way you got doctors. You had to either send them a telegram or something that you wanted. Then they come with a buggy, and a horse and a buggy, and
Where did they come from, Valpa then or Minot?
I think it was Grenville.
Granville?
Grenville. I think it was Grenville.
Huh.
That's the way they come with horse and buggy. They needed help. The doctor was there.
And my folks came to Carlsruhe in 1939, and they bought the Red Owl store in Carlsruhe. And it so happened that we bought Grandma and Grandpa Abel's house the day of the 4th of July, and we bought the Red Owl store the day of the 4th of July. That's how I got to Carlsruhe.
What was your mother and father's full names?
My mother's name, my dad was Michael Lear, and my mother was Barbara Binford. Her first name was Barbara Meyer, but she was married before to Martin Binford, and then her husband died in a harvest accident, and then she got later married on September the 22nd. She got married in 1916. But her first, like I said, her first husband had died. And then the Lear relationship was down in the Napoleon area, and they said they had a cousin up in Karlsruhe that lost his wife this spring on childbirth, so and he'd be happy to take care of your family if you would be willing to take care of his. And that's the arrangements they made then. And Lear came down one evening, and they talked it over for a while with the Lear relationship there. And they went over to the priest the next morning. There was no blood test or anything. The next morning, they went over to the priest. They got married, and Lear moved up to Karlsruhe. That's how quick that romance was, and that's how quick the marriage was.
It's just an overnight deal.
It was an overnight deal.
And it worked fine.
You never seen each other before?
Never seen each other before. My mother had come up over from Russia in the spring, and then of course she worked down there because they knew they had work to do. And she worked down there, and in the fall they had intentions for her to go to Dickinson because her stepmother lived in Dickinson and she had a stepsister in Dickinson. But then this happened on August the 15th, and then they coupled them up years ago, and Mother and Dad got coupled up. You?
What should I say? What you would do?
What can you tell us about your mom and your dad?
Well, I was born up in the South Farm, and I think we moved down to the river in '37. And I was about maybe 10 years old or so, something like that.
What did your dad do for a living?
They farmed.
Did they have very many cattle?
Well, they always milked about a dozen cows. I'd say something like that.
How much land did they have?
Quarter and 80 up the other farm. They always had a quarter to 80. That's all the land they ever at that time.
Did they sell the milk or did they sell the cream?
Cream.
Milk
They
was
did.
just for the kids?
What?
Milk was for the kids?
Oh no, they had to separate. They had to buy their groceries with that cream. That was their bread and butter. That's if they wouldn't have had cream, they wouldn't have nothing for the kids to eat, you know.
So then you started school? Where did you go to school?
Verandry was my school. I went to Verandry School for 11 years.
And where did you go to school?
Well, my first 4 years, I went to Smoky Lake School out in the farm yet over by Orange. And then my sister Ann Murphy and her husband lived in Carlsruhe, and my sister Frances wanted to go to high school. So they went over to Carlsruhe and put us kids over to John Merck's so we could go to parochial school. Well, then the next spring, Frances graduated from high school. Then we had to stay back and go to the farm again in Carlsruhe in Smoky Lake for another year. And then the following years when they went to Carlsruhe and bought the Real stores, we moved over, and that was in '39.
So Dad, you went to school, Brentry, 11 years, your
11
12th year,
years.
is that when you met your bride, your mom, our mother?
Yeah, there she come. She wouldn't leave me alone anymore.
Was it in the fall? Did you meet her right away when school started?
It was about in January. We went sleigh riding. Then she pushed me around and I pushed her around. Pretty soon she'd come down and give me a peck on the cheek. And that started the whole works.
Was that a date then already, or no?
I don't know. I walked her home then, but that's as far as it went.
Did you have other girlfriends, Dad?
No. Oh, I had some school girls, in the grades,
Oh.
but that was just,
Puppy 11.
no, but I went to school 11 years for Raymond. And then we had about 75, 80 kids going to school at that time. And I went to 2 years of high school, and I took 1 year by correspondence. They sent all the work to Fargo. 4 of us in school that year. So I took school by correspondence. Then I went to Carlsruhe.
When did you first play basketball?
When I started school.
No.
Not like first grade or
Oh, I suppose about 6th, 7th, 8th grade, something like that.
Where did you play? What teams did you play against?
We played against Bergen, Voltaire, Belfort, Norwich, just little schools around.
Carlsruhe?
Carlsruhe, yeah. Oh, we always beat Carlsruhe.
Who was the star player?
No, I don't know who you were.
When did you first have your nickname? Were you just a baby when they started calling you Buddy?
My buddy, I had that all the time, I don't know when it started. I think my sister gave it to me. Mary kind of couldn't say brother, so she said buddy, and that's where it stayed.
Mom, who was your first boyfriend?
Oh, she was loaded.
No, I didn't have boyfriends, but I did have boys that came to the store, and they would sweep the store because my brothers both went to service. And then it was just mother and dad, and of course mom and dad were fairly old, and I in the store. And then like Nan Plant, and I did have a crush on him, I must admit.
Then she paid them guys for sweeping the floor. She never paid me for sweeping the floor.
Yeah, but you got her.
Yeah.
But no.
Well, her dad said, I gotta sweep the floor to help her. It's the only way I get her.
Was there a worst winter storm that you can remember when you were a child?
Oh, we had some bad, a lot more snow. I believe we had a lot more snow when I was out in the farm yet at the Orne area, because there was snow that drifted over this chicken coop and stuff like
The
that.
winters were always bad, always bad.
Then,
Well, we didn't have you had to go by horse and sleigh for everything. We went to school all the time in the wintertime with a sleigh. We never started. It was the best place you could find. Right down. You don't remember that, he's too young.
Any favorite snacks that you eat between meals?
Sweets?
no, we
Mom
did not.
always made cookies. When the kids come home from school, there was always donuts or cookies or cake or something
Rolls.
all the time.
Tell us about your very first car.
Your first car. When did we have a first car? Oh, we had a pickup all
You
the
had a
time.
pickup when
Then
we
I
got married.
did buy a new car
In '49.
in '49. It was for about $1,500–1,600.
A
It was a Ford, brand new
light
car,
green in color.
but that wasn't a very good car. 2 years later, we bought another one, a Chevy. That was about $1,500. Then after about the early 60s, I think 63, we got a new car. We got a new Pontiac that year. And every year from there on, every 4 years we had a new car. Every 4 years we had a new car. Or a new pickup.
Did you have any favorite pets?
We never had no pets in the house. We had children. We didn't have pets.
Always had a dog at the farm though.
Oh,
We
yeah.
always had a dog in the
Always
farm,
had a dog in
yes.
the farm.
What was your typical Sundays like?
Always went to mass. That was, on the farm, we walked to church because our church was only about a quarter of a mile away from our farmhouse. And in town then, of course, we walked to church also, but then, that was when I was in the 5th grade. From there on, I lived in town. We called the town of Carlsbad, of course, but it was a
So when you started having kids, how many kids fit in the car to go to church?
well, they didn't all come at once, you know. They came one by one. So we had room until they were about,
We had a habit last night.
Could they touch each other?
no,
No.
they couldn't step on their feet either.
Oh, no.
with their
You ever have to
shoes.
stop on the way home?
Many times.
Did they all want to sit by the window?
Yes,
For
they
sure,
all
yeah.
wanted to sit by the window. And I always had the baby up front in my lap. And then there was always another one in between. And there's probably 6 of them that sit in the back seat.
One always got to stay home and babysit though a lot of times.
Later, when there was probably 8, 9 children. And then the one had to stay home with the little ones.
Were you involved in church and school activities?
I was in church involved all the time. The good Lord helped me all the time to put me through my crisis. I still go to church every morning I could possibly do.
Is there anything you would do differently as a teenager?
What do you do as everything? She was a little girl, you know. Would you?
No, I wasn't. What I was gonna say, no, I was, just because he thinks I was proud because after the store closed and stuff like that, then of course you didn't always go straight home, you know, sometimes you went over to the school grounds and you played on the giant strikes and stuff like that, and then they pushed you to the side, you flew around the,
Did you ever make a purchase that you later regretted? Any trucks or cars that you shouldn't have bought?
Snowmobile.
Snow.
No, that was a good one.
What?
That was a good investment.
Good at snowmobile?
Yeah, that worked.
Yeah, you always had to work on that.
Yeah, that one was.
That was always,
When did you first get a telephone?
after we got into our home, we built our home in '53, and only after that we got a telephone.
we had a private, not a private
Party line.
party line. Maybe there were a dozen people that hear your rings a lot, heard the rings and everything all the time.
And you could listen into them too. couldn't
All
you?
the time, yeah, yeah.
And we knew each ring whose it was. Ours was 1 long and 3 shorts.
Then we got this other telephone, maybe in the 70s, this, the total private line. Maybe
Service
60s there.
they came around to, and I remember I was
Maybe.
on the roof shingling on the milk house when they came to ask us to sign the papers for the,
No, that had to be in the 60s.
yes, well, we got Sears River telephone.
What kind of school lunches did you pack?
Well, only school lunches I got on the farm was, my folks were never on welfare. So all the other people, they got oranges and apples, things like that. Many of them were, not everybody. But then we a lot of times just had a sandwich, or donut, or cookie, or something like that. And of course, never no pop or anything. We never had nothing to drink. And we didn't have hot lunches out in the sandhills. And in town, then we went home for dinner.
Randy never had hot lunches, did they?
Very little, very little, very little.
Tell us about some good advice your mother or your dad gave you.
What'd your dad tell you? What'd your mother tell you?
Anything after one's no good.
Yeah, everything.
Oh, tell us about your high school prom.
Okay, well, Dad came in his senior year, and he sat kitty corner from me all the way. I was in the back seat of this corner, and Buddy was sitting in the very front seat, way up by the seniors, and of course I was in the other corner. And then he'd wink.
She winked first.
This
Yeah.
is at the prom?
Yeah, what?
You didn't take
No,
her
this
off?
was before.
Oh, before,
And then
okay.
that's when the sleigh riding started in town, when he didn't go go home to the farm, something like that. And then he'd come in and he would help me with cream testing, empty the cream cans, lift them and
I
stuff.
felt sorry for her, so I helped her.
And that's how that started. And then after ball games or something like that, he'd walk me home. And,
You came in with Grandpa's car then, or?
oh yeah, Grandpa's car.
Never had a car before I was married.
We never had you never had a car before
When you
we
got
was
married? You
No,
had nothing?
nobody did, nobody did.
Didn't have no car when we got married,
I wonder who had a car at that time.
but they had a pickup and a car. So then, the pickup, he got more so than the car. But then I got a letter in the mail one day and he invited me to the prom.
Oh, and you said, oh no, not him.
And you rode him back?
Did you read it
I
back?
don't recall or anything like that, but I think I asked Mother then if I could go to, and she said, well, I'm not gonna buy no dress, but if you can find a dress that fits you, then you can go. So I got Agnes Crafts dress. It was a peach in color. And that's what I got for the, and Mother didn't have to do anything to it, I just,
I thought you got going around to get closer.
that was another dress.
What did you do on Thanksgivings when you were younger?
We never had turkey, but we had stuffed chickens. And see, after I was, I have nieces and nephews, which were only, my oldest niece is only 3 months. No, she's 12, a year younger than I am. Brigitta Hubbard. My sister Mary got married in July. I was born in May. My sister Mary got married in July. And then the following July was when Brigitta Hubbard was born. So I always had nieces and nephews coming around.
The first year you were married, how much income do you think you made?
Maybe, $500, $1,000
A year?
a year.
But then that didn't include the cream check every week or so on.
Maybe we had $1,000 the first year.
Did you file taxes right away?
We didn't do that. Didn't do that.
Did you ever have times where you couldn't pay bills, had hard times where you couldn't pay off things?
Well, at that time, when they filled the gas tank, when they filled the gas tanks, you paid, they give you the gas from one phone to the next one. After harvest, you pay your bills. They never charged nothing, right? You paid your bills once a year, and then you're good for the next year again.
That was the first thing that had to get paid. And when I got married, I got a dowry, what do you call it?
Diary?
Diary?
Dowry.
No, that my mother and dad gave me a bedroom set and table and chairs, and she gave me 6 cows. And
You had a herd.
No wonder Dad married you.
Did you have to milk the cows or Dad get up and milk the cows every morning?
We always
we
went
went
together.
together. We always did everything together.
And you lived with your,
We lived with the Walker folks. We got married on November the 4th, and I moved out to the farm on November the 5th, and stayed with the Walker folks. And then Pa Walker said he'd like to have one more crop off before. So then we just stayed with the Walker folks. And when I went to the hospital to get Maryland the next year, October the 24th, then the Walker folks moved to Carlsbad.
tell us,
Well, Uncle Benny and Aunt Issy were still living at home too then at the time?
Yes, and when we lived with the Walker folks, Alice was left. She was going to school, college to teach school.
But then she went to girls' school.
And then she went to Carlsbad. But she was graduated at the time we got married.
tell us about your wedding.
Our wedding,
10 o'clock in the morning.
father ceremony. And we got married at 10 o'clock in the morning. And dinner was in the Lear house. Mrs. Mike Coopser and Mrs. Tony Cambice were the cooks. And they cooked everything in the basement of the Lear house. And then we ate in the living room and the front room. A lot of the grandchildren that came, the parents, well, they went upstairs and they kept the kids quiet upstairs. Well, but father came, we didn't have a big wedding. We just didn't have them. It was just
Just family.
his brothers and my brothers and sisters. And
you have a dance?
Oh, yes, oh, yes. We, in the afternoon, it was Sister Barmaea's name day, November the 4th, in St. Charles, Barmaea. And then she invited us, she couldn't come to the wedding, so she invited us to stop at the hospital after we had our pictures taken. Then we stopped at the hospital, and she had a little reception there. And then from there, oh, she was so happy, but she didn't get to come. And then we went to Carl's room and had supper. And after supper was the wedding dance, and the 5 Sharp played up orchestra of 5 people.
Did Dad propose or did Mom propose?
I don't know nothing about it.
I don't know nothing about it either. Well, I'll tell you this though, the Walter folks took Aunt Eva out west. Remember?
Then what?
And Walter folks took Aunt Eva out west. And then, well, they was out west just like all young kids do. Then, of course, Ellis was home though, and Benny was home, Izzy was home. But he coaxed me to stay overnight out at the farm. So I stayed overnight in the farm, and then the next morning we canned tomatoes. And of course I didn't call home. No, I was naughty.
Well, there were no telephones, were there?
No.
There was nothing.
Then after tomatoes were canned, and then Buddy called me home that day.
Did you have a honeymoon after you got married?
Honeymoon.
There
No,
was
Been
work to be
honeymoon
done.
ever since?
we,
Right, Don? See, he agrees.
but Buddy, we did go up,
We went up to rugby.
we went up to Rugby. That was about Feast of the, because Buddy was supposed to meet my side of the family. And then we went to, Aunt Megan was the one that asked us to come up. We didn't have no car before, so we went to Walter Folks' car. We stayed one night away that time, and we went to Joe Hubbard's and built boats, and came back to the farm.
Tell us about the winter of '49.
Well, that was winter. We had all that snow, and there was no cars out, no nothing, all winter. And everybody, whoever had horses, Auberly's hauled, and we hauled our milk up the hill with the horses, took it on the dinky and everything like that. And maybe it was in February, March, the army come out, they called the army. The bulldozers come and open up all the roads. But there was no highways open or nothing, like number 2,
Everything was
52.
standstill.
Everything was at a standstill.
And you had
But
flood?
there was drifts 10, 15 foot high. And then after the snow melted, we had a flood. We moved out for about a week that time, something like that.
In 49, we just moved out for about a week. And like,
And we moved out to Royals that time up to South Farm up there.
we lived
They were
with them.
living at them at that
We
time.
lived with them for a week then.
How many other floods did you go through?
We had 3 floods after that we moved out.
69, 73, 74.
Worst one was '69?
I
That,
think about 16 was maybe.
that's,
Well, 71 or 74. No, 70.
Well, '69, weren't you out for 6
The
weeks?
longest time, probably.
But then the flood after that did the most damage.
in the
I
fields
think
and
at
so on.
the early flood there, that first one, we got the bridge in array that time.
Coming downhill, that bridge there, to let the water go through faster.
How much did your house cost when you built your house?
Right around $7,000, 75. That was brand new, everything all the way through. The plumbing, the heat, everything. Cost about $7,500.
Did you do any work yourself?
All of the neighbors would come. Oh, everybody come. We had Tony Feist there as a carpenter. I don't know what he got, but I think the material cost about $3,500 for building it. And all the neighbors come, everybody who had time, come over. Tony Feist got everything ready, and they come and put it together. We had everybody around at that time.
What were some of your best years?
How good were your years? Good. Best years were the 70s.
When did you work in Brendry at the gravel pit up there?
I worked there 62, 3, 4, and 5. I drove a uke up there. I got $3.80 an hour. And that was big money at that time. And every month I come in with about $1,200, $1,300. And I think I had 2 months' pay. I bought a new car,
How many hours did you work a week there?
maybe 60 or so. I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
But at
Who
that
did the
time.
farming then?
What? Oh, we had Chuck left.
Chuck Lear came
And
out.
we always farmed at, when I come home, I'd have to farm. When I, early in the morning or late at night, went out to farm, then I went up to drove you.
Was that 7 days a week?
You're pretty close. But at that time, 2 months' work, you buy a new car, bought a new Pontiac for about $2,700. A nice,
What were the toughest years?
toughest years. They weren't all so tough.
None of them were tough years, I gotta say, none of them were tough years. I mean, I had sick problems ever so often, but
But then we on the farm too. You had your chickens, you had your pigs, you had your garden. There was something there all the time. There was always something there.
nobody ever went hungry, that I know.
Did you ever have family gatherings?
Oh yes, I always had Thanksgiving. Joe Lears and the Lear folks and the Walter folks would always come to our place in the log house yet.
On Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, yeah, for Thanksgiving.
Well, tell us about your children.
Who's your favorite?
There were no favorites.
Do they help you a lot?
They all helped. They all helped.
I must say our children always helped. And the girls, I mean, 2 of them would wash, one would wash dishes, one would wipe dishes, the next one would sweep, the next one would wipe up
The
the
son
pot.
would get dishwater and I reel when it's time for the dishes.
Yeah.
Things like that always happened.
But no, they all worked together. And like I said, when the children were way young, then I used to take the little wagon outside because I said to Buddy, would just help me get the cows in the barn, then I could milk. And we got married in the fall, and he had 4 cows, and I come with 6. Well, then we got a milking machine. But all he had to do is help me get the cattle in the barn, and then he would go in the field, and I would take care of them.
We had the best times at haying time. Mom would bring lunch out, she'd put the tablecloth, and all the kids would be around, and we had the best time at haying time. We just waited for lunch to come. The whole family would come out. I think you all remember that.
It was picnic time.
And then harvest time, you ate different shifts all the time.
Yeah, harvest time we ate different shifts.
Especially after the kids. And Alan, I mean, when he was in the 5th grade, he was out with plow, packer, and drill. I mean, they,
What year did you stop milking cows?
Blood,
69.
69.
How many cows did you milk the most at one time?
Oh, maybe 30? Maybe 30?
30, around there.
How about eggs? How many dozen eggs did you take to town on Saturday nights to get
That wasn't a big deal.
that many eggs?
But we butchered a lot of chickens. The girls butchered a lot of chickens.
What's the most chickens you raised one year?
1,000. But that time I had the girls, I had all 4 girls home yet then. And of course I said, well, girls, we'll butcher chickens. I know I can sell them. If you're willing to butcher and clean them all and help, he said, then we can buy you clothes, school clothes like you want. So, no, the most we ever had was, but we sold chickens for many years.
But you said save some over the winter time for laying hens.
Oh yeah, we always saved some for laying hens. About 40 we kept.
How about your garden? How big was your garden?
Garden was pretty big, especially the potato field was a little bit too big for, they all didn't like this big potato field every year. But down when we brought them in the fall, we had the root cellar and we had boards up the
It
front.
was plumb full of potatoes a lot of times.
But it gave something for the boys to do. They had to weed the potatoes.
Boys did a lot.
But they did.
All I hear about is girls.
What did the girls do?
Butcher 250 chickens apiece.
Yeah,
They
they
scrub
butchered
the
chickens.
floors and then let the boys come in?
They always had trouble with the boys. The girls had
They
trouble with the
brought
boys.
nests in.
They wouldn't let them in all the time.
Tell us about your travels. Where all did you travel?
Well, I think the first place we went any place was, well, we always went to the Soil Conservation State Convention. For 35 years, I think we went every year. Usually in Bismarck, Barlow, Grand Forks.
And our babysitter then was with Pa Walter. Pa Walter, sometimes Blanche would come out, but
No,
mostly,
Pa had him out. But who milked them? Kids? I don't know.
well, this was,
But our first trip on a plane was Washington D.C. About in 70, about that.
that time the kids were big enough to do the short. But then we didn't milk no more after 69.
In 70 we went to D.C. and then we went to San Francisco. We went to Los Angeles 3 times.
We were
We
to
went to
Hawaii.
Florida. We went to Hawaii.
76.
Yeah, 76 we were in Hawaii.
What's your favorite place that you went?
They were at Washington D.C. Washington D.C. in my eyes was the most to see
Where else, Florida?
in